Now, the Duval Rundown, driven by Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, home of the lifetime warranty.
Good morning. Welcome to Duval Rundown. I'm Hayes Carline. Please be joined as always on Wednesday with Ryan O'Halloran, columnist of the Florida Times-Union. You can follow Ryan at Ryan O'Halloran and, of course, read his work at Jacksonville.com. Ryan, good morning.
Good. Hayes, how we doing? It's a Final Four weekend, which is obviously should be a great day of football, but just a lot of subplots that we can get to after we talk some Jaguars.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you started with that because I'm honestly curious if the Jaguars were playing at Denver, particularly against Jarrett Stidham, or were playing. I know they would have played New England last weekend, but for the sake of the conversation, how do you think the Jaguars would have matched up against either of the teams that are going to vie to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl?
Well, let's start with New England because that's probably that's who they would have played. I like the matchup. New England didn't really have a good pressure plan. Will Campbell didn't have a great game of left tackle, and Drake May puts the ball on the ground, and that's one thing Trevor Lawrence didn't do this year. When he got sacked, he held on to the football with maybe one or two exceptions. The weather would not have been a factor on the Saturday game. Sunday would have been tricky, but that game would have been Saturday. Okay, let's say Jags win in New England. They go to Denver. I think they would have been favored in Vegas. New England was 5.5-point favorite earlier in the week. So I would have liked the Jaguars' chances against Jarrett Stidham just because he hasn't played. And you don't know what that offense is going to look like. And I mean, we talked about it last week is just like the Jaguars have to be kicking themselves. New England's going to be kicking themselves if they don't go to Denver and win on Sunday.
Yeah, without a doubt. And we sort of knew that after the Buffalo loss that there was a chance that this is how you would feel as the rest of the AFC tournament played out of, man, if they had just drawn pretty much anyone other than the Bills, and if they had just executed a little bit better against Buffalo, the Jaguars might have reached the Super Bowl for the first time. But alas, that's the NFL. They didn't get it done, and they're back to square one. But Ryan, you wrote a great column. Tell us when it publishes, but obviously looking back at the last year, because tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary of Shad Khan making the biggest pivot in franchise history. Liam Cohen basically says, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to stay as an offensive coordinator. Shad Khan then fires general manager Trent Baalke and is able to go and then get Liam Cohen to reconsider and take the Jaguars job. And obviously they have an incredible 13-win season, win a divisional title. Walk us through the column, and are fans able to read that now, or will it publish later?
I'll publish later. It'll be tomorrow's paper. January 22nd, 2025. The morning started with Liam Cohen dropping out of consideration. Well, we know why he dropped out of consideration. That consideration was fired at 3 o'clock that afternoon. That would be the general manager, Trent Baalke. Cohen back in. Deal struck very quickly. Press conference the following Monday. And, I started the column by saying the Jaguars have been playing football since 1995. There have not been a lot of franchise-altering days in a positive. No Super Bowl appearances, more 10-loss seasons than division titles. But firing Trent Baalke, 2.5 weeks into a coaching search, that had an immediate impact, and I think it's going to have a long-lasting impact because changes need to be made. And I go back and forth. Do you credit Shad Khan for firing Trent Baalke? Well, you hired him, so I don't give him a ton of credit, but he does deserve credit for basically swallowing his pride and saying, "We got to move on." I like Liam Cohen, but to get Liam Cohen, I need to do this. And if it's Trent Baalke, it's probably Robert Saleh. It's no Tony Baselli. It's no James Gladstone, and certainly no Liam Cohen. So it was a day that will live in positive memories for Jaguar fans now and moving forward.
Is there even a comparable search that you can think of in recent years? And obviously we have, a bunch of openings this year, but so far it's just been it seems like the guys that have made the hires have pretty much gotten, guys at the top of their list. But can you recollect a search that went that direction where it was like the owner believed the general manager was the right person to hire the next coach? The owner gets feedback of, I'm not going to work with this general manager. I'd rather stay as an offensive coordinator. And then he pivots and fires the GM, because it still, to me, remains one of the most unique coaching searches, hires that the league has seen in recent years. But to the Jags, credit, it looks like it ended up working out beautifully.
Unprecedented in my memory, and that's what made it such a unique story that day. And I was in Kansas City that week doing the Chiefs side of things for Bills Chiefs AFC title game week. So, but I was following it. Okay, that morning, Liam Cohen. Well, it didn't take a rocket scientist to connect the dots on why Liam Cohen was dropping out. I was racking my very small brain about this. I couldn't come up with any kind of parallel.
Yeah,
the parallel that I covered was after the 2007 season in Washington, when Dan Snyder, in his infinite wisdom, hired offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator before he hired the head coach. Shocker, Steve Spagnuolo dropped out of consideration after the Super Bowl, and Jim Zorn went from OC to head coach, and lasted 2 years. So that was total dysfunction. This just wasn't a straight line, which head coaching searches aren't often, but it ended up in the right place for the Jaguars.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob Simons helping us out on Duval Rundown. Jacob, thank you so much. Let's say hello to our sponsor, please.
Falou for Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, your locally owned commercial truck headquarters and proud partner of the Jaguars. For hard-to-find ProMaster vans or commercial trucks for your fleet, visit jaxwest.com today.
Brian, let's talk a little bit about the Saleh hire in Tennessee, because it's a sound hire.
Yeah.
I'll say this for Saleh: he certainly doesn't let dysfunctional ownership sway him in taking a job. It'd be hard pressed to find two worse run organizations than the Jets and the Titans. But here he goes. I guess maybe he feels a little bit better about his quarterback situation in Nashville with Cam Ward than what he had in New York with Zach Wilson for the majority of his tenure. Obviously, the 1 year with Aaron Rodgers ended a few snaps into that season with the Achilles injury. But I think this is good news for the Jaguars. I mean, nothing against Saleh. He knows the league. I mean, he'll be competent in terms of he's not going to lose the locker room or anything like that. But in terms of being a real threat, and obviously a lot of it is their personnel, but it doesn't seem like this is a hire to me that all of a sudden you look up in a year like the Jaguars just did, and it's like, wow, how did Tennessee win 11 games?
Yeah, I was surprised Tennessee went defensive with their head coach. They had Matt Nagy in, which he's an offensive guy, but to me that wouldn't have moved the needle either. I would have went with Mike McCarthy in Tennessee. He's coached Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott. He's won a Super Bowl. I'm surprised that Mike McCarthy hasn't gotten more traction. He's not a long-term play, maybe 4 or 5 years, and because he's an older head coach. But I think he would have settled down at organization. I think Buffalo should talk to him. But in terms of Saleh, his offensive staff is going to be a fascinating subplot. Who can he convince as a coordinator to come to Tennessee and coach Cam Ward, who showed potential? This offensive coordinator will have the keys to that side of the ball because Saleh has said he's going to call the defensive plays, which he said it was a mistake he didn't do didn't do that with the Jets. But this division has crystallized over the last week in favor of the Jaguars. Colts, who knows what they're doing? Texans, C.J. Stroud had his Jake Delhomme game in the playoffs, and Jake Delhomme was never the same. And they may have a new OC in Houston, and now Tennessee. You shouldn't have confidence in anything they're doing right now. So it's been a good week for the Jaguars, because if you're the Jaguars, what you didn't want the Titans to do is you didn't want them to hire like an offensive mastermind. Mike McDaniel should have scared the Jaguars if he was the head coach. Same with Brian Daboll in terms of play calling. So it doesn't. It's like that's my reaction.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fair. I don't think he'll be terrible there. It won't be a debacle. You take that out of play when you hire a coach like Robert Saleh, who has the reputation he has in the NFL, and again, just knows the league. Has been in the league for now almost, probably 20 years. But I don't think there's a lot of sizzle to it either. And I agree with you. I think the division sets up really nicely for the Jaguars moving forward. What do you think Houston does with Stroud? Do you bring in, if Geno Smith is available, if Kirk Cousins is available, and it may not be to that level, but do you bring in Jacoby Brissett is sort of pull the, panic lever if you get to week 6 and Stroud is really struggling? Or do you think if you're Houston, you've got to give CJ Stroud another full year and maybe just retain Davis Mills and go that direction?
That's my answer. It'd be Davis Mills. I think he's won games. He led that comeback against the Jaguars. I would have went to him at halftime of the playoff game because D'Amico Ryans basically gave up on his defense because he didn't want to ruin his quarterback. Well, if that was your concern, then you have the wrong quarterback. Yeah. I would expect Houston to pick up the 5th-year option because that's a nice little placeholder, even though it's fully guaranteed. But I would not talk extension with Stroud's camp because that was such a terrible performance. And Greg Bedard from the Boston Sports Journal does a great job with the tape. He had CJ Stroud for 21 negative plays in that game. He said his previous high for an opposing quarterback was probably about 14 or 15. Wow. So, that shows you how bad. Some of Trevor Lawrence's games this year, I had him for 4 negative plays.
Yeah.
So that shows you how bad it was. If I'm Houston, if you could, to me, I would try and swing for the fences. Okay, does somebody want CJ Stroud in a trade? Because Troy Aikman said it at the end of the broadcast on Sunday. You have not seen any improvement from year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3. That's a problem. And so they're probably going to start over with a new coordinator. Well, that means he's got to learn a new offense. And granted, no Nico Collins. But the other thing is they didn't block very well. And so the Houston's got some issues because they have a great defense. But you have to score points. You have to not turn it over.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at the Jaguars and their staff, Grant Udisky obviously was the betting favorite to be the Browns' next head coach. I don't know if that line has been updated in the last day or so. And Anthony Campanile, I guess, is still in play for the Ravens, but it seems like maybe that's the only spot. Yeah. What's the update on the 2 Jaguar coordinators from what you're seeing?
Yeah, Campanile, pretty much Baltimore is. I'm trying to figure out what Baltimore's plan is. They're casting a wide net like a lot of these teams are because of the virtual interview. It can be the first round. Let's go to Cleveland for a second. Nate Shieldhouse, the Rams pass game coordinator, seems to be intriguing to them. If the Rams beat the Seahawks, are they willing to wait? If he's your guy, you wait. Udinski is going to be up there later this week for an in-person interview. Did 3 hours with them on Saturday. That was virtual, which is you're allowed only the 3 hours. So if I'm Grant Udinski, one of the questions I'm getting around the league this week is, well, would you take the Brown job? And my answer is yes, because it's 1 of 32. And also you're 30 years old. If it doesn't work out, you'll be 34 and nobody's going to take it. Nobody's going to hold it against you that you failed in Cleveland. Look at Robert Saleh. He got a job right away after failing with the Jets. So,
and Stefanski immediately got the Falcons job.
Yeah. So
although he did some pretty good things in Cleveland, it wasn't like it was a total debacle.
Yeah. And, so Harbaugh, great things in Baltimore, got back on the horse. The one name that I have not seen out there is Sean McDermott. And does he want to coach this year? Does Cleveland call him? If I'm Tennessee, I would have called Sean. Say, hey, you set the culture in Buffalo. You had a franchise quarterback. You helped him along. Baltimore, why don't they call McDermott? So there must be some things going on behind the scenes. But the interesting thing to me, and I'll throw it back at you, is if Udinski gets the Cleveland job, what is the course that Liam Cohen might take to replace him?
Yeah, and I think it was really interesting that the Chargers went and got Mike McDaniel. I don't often look at a coordinator hire as maybe something that can elevate particularly a team that's already winning by a couple of wins, but that's one that could do it. I mean, Mike McDaniel with Justin Herbert, who I still think is a very good player and certainly has the potential to play in an elite level. I mean, again, he was off to a fantastic start this season, even with Slater out. But then they lost all, and it just totally disintegrated when they lost both premium tackles that they'd invested so much in. But I think the Chargers with Herbert and their weapons, you hand the offensive keys to Mike McDaniel. I mean, that has the potential to be scary, in my opinion. Yeah. So, you would have loved to have seen that. So I do think if Liam loses Udinski, I mean, that becomes, I know Liam's the play caller, and it's going to be hard. You could have never lured a guy like McDaniel. I understand that. But it is important for him to find the next, guy that is willing to take that kind of role where I'm the coordinator, but I'm not the play caller. But somebody that, can work well with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, so I think it's a little bit of a dilemma. I'm sure Liam's got his list. He's very obviously well connected, and he has a lot to sell. The candidate, the quarterback is hitting stride. You're coming into a program that's been winning, so there's that expectation. So I think there's a lot to like. But I would be curious to see, and in terms of speculating on names, I think it's hard because for me, I think you're looking at, somebody who hasn't been a play caller, maybe more in the quarterback coach realm, or maybe a college offensive coordinator that's tired of, dealing with NIL, that just wants to get into, the next level up. So I don't know. I don't, in terms of names, it's hard to, for me to specify, but that's the sort of guy I would think it would be if he has to replace Udinski. What about you?
Yeah, and to me, the name you're going to see is Josh Grizzard, who was fired by Tampa Bay. He was on Liam's Buccaneers staff in 2024, and I think that's going to be for the key for Cohen is you don't want to have to bring a coordinator in where you're going to have to teach him what's going on. He's going to be able to have a pretty seamless transition. And one thing we talked about before is Udinski was very involved with the quarterback coaching along with Spencer Whipple. So that background will help. But you're right. Liam's got plan A, B, and C that he'll be able to execute. I do think it would be an outside hire, but it would also be an important hire because let's say Udinski gets the Cleveland job. May he try and take a couple of Jaguar assistants via promotions to Cleveland. So then you cycle again. So I think we'll get some answers on that. Real quick on McDaniel, I think him and Herbert are going to be awesome. Yeah. I think that's a problem for the AFC West because when McDaniels, his teams didn't finish well in Miami, but you look at his offensive talent, everybody got better under his watch, including Tua.
Right.
So he is going to be a really big addition, and he picked the Chargers. He had many other options. So that'll be it was a good move for the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree. I think, to be honest, it's probably been, John Harbaugh of the Giants has probably been my favorite hire. And I do think the Falcons did well getting Stefanski. But boy, that Baker Mayfield, he went after Stefanski yesterday. That was really interesting. That sets up some intriguing Falcons-Bucks games next season. But I do like the hire. But in terms of, I'd put McDaniel third. And it's nothing against Hafley, I just don't know Jeff Hafley all that well. It seems like a fine hire, but Insalo, like we talked about, is just sort of average, I'd say. But yeah, Mike McDaniel with the Chargers as OC, that has a chance to take. They won 12 games this season? It's hard to go higher than that. Yeah. But I'd be surprised if they can keep Slater and Alt healthy next year with McDaniel. And then obviously you've got McConkey, Quentin Johnston. I don't know if Keenan Allen will be back, but Gadsden, the young tight end, will be in his second year. Amari and Hampton. They've got the potential to be frightening good on offense next year. But, and I don't think the Jags and Chargers, play next year.
No.
Yeah, so that's good. If you see him, it'll obviously be in the playoffs. But Ryan, give us an idea what's coming up on Jacksonville.com. Obviously, you got the column tomorrow on the 1 year anniversary of the Cohen Balky thing, which is fantastic. But what else should fans expect coming up? It doesn't have to be Jaguars, just anything coming up on Jacksonville.com you want people to check out.
Well, today's paper was online yesterday. I had a little fun projecting what the first Robert Saleh Liam Cohen meeting would be like at the league. That
was
meeting.
Funny.
So, how do you know they're going to say that? Well, I just sort of projected what they would say. Right. The 1 year anniversary of Balky firing this week. Went down to Florida on Monday, talked with Todd Golden for a little bit. So a column on the Gators who are rolling. You were there last night in Gainesville, which was just a terrible game to watch.
I loved it. But
hopefully it was better in person from an entertainment standpoint. Hopefully your dad had fun.
We had a great time.
But and then I'm bringing back the statistical review after a 7-year absence. I did it. Actually did it here, did it in Denver, did not do it in Buffalo. But they'll be running in print in maybe 2 weeks, but we're hopefully going to have it online next week where, okay, who gave up the most sacks, who had the most missed tackles, you name it. I sort of broke it down. I would show you my binder, but it's underneath my laptop. So, but yeah, so that was.
I've seen it. Trust me, it's extensive.
So that'll be a nice little look back and on the.
That'll be fun. Well, maybe we can talk about that either next Wednesday or the Wednesday after.
Yeah, and I'll have it all done by then. And but yeah, so trying to. But as we've talked about since we know each other, NFL doesn't stop.
No.
And so there's always something going on, and the Jaguars are going to be in that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff, Ryan. We certainly appreciate it. Look forward to talking with you next Wednesday. And again, check out Ryan's stuff at Ryan O'Halloran and Jacksonville.com. Ryan, thanks so much, man. I'll look forward to talking with you here soon.
Okay, Ace.
All right, that's going to do it for us on Duval Rundown. We'll be back on Friday with Rick Ballou. Until then, enjoy your day, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching Duval Rundown.